I'd like to welcome you to this third chapter of the book of Habakkuk. Before we get into the chapter, I'd like to mention again the yellow numbers correspond to our book English derivatives, which can be found on our website, bookstore, and the purple numbers, like down here in the corner, purple or blue, whatever, someplace in there, those numbers are definite articles, and we only have the definite article highlighted of the nominative articles. That means the subject of the sentence. There are 6 nominative definite articles, and we are only highlighting the masculine and feminine. So the masculine is the O, the omega. The feminine is the eta in the singular, and in the plural it is the omicron iota E diphthong and the alpha iota diphthong for the feminine plural. Now the neuter is a little bit more, has a little more interest in grammar, because the neuter nominative and the accusative are the same in the singular, toe, and in the neuter plural it's ta. So in a sentence, when you get to the toe and the ta, it can go either way with the word when you see the article. So, and then the nouns generally always follow the same. So it's very difficult to tell. You have to sit there and look and figure it out. In many cases, it can go either way with the toe and the ta. The subject of the sentence and the object, it can reverse it sort of in Greek. And we talk about the man going to the store. It could be the going to the store man. And in that case, it would sort of be an object, and the first it would be the nominative, the subject, the man going to the store. But we're going to go over that later. So right now we're just having the 4 articles that are obviously nominative, and they're the subject of the verse or the sentence that they're in. So with that, we'll begin, and the third chapter begins. Prosephi Habakkuk tu prophetu met o these. The prayer, the prosephi, if this chapter wasn't so deep, it had so many things to bring out, I would put the emphasis on this word, the prayer, the prosephi. We'll be doing this a little bit later, going through this word and making the word on the word pamphlet for it. What prayer is. The prayer of Habakkuk, the prophetu, a prophet, is a transliteration here, with an ode, odis, an ode. The prayer with an ode, with some type of can be put to music or sung, either one. In verse 2, Kyrie Isakikoa tin akoin su, ke fovithin Kyrie, katanoisa ta ergasu, ke existin en meso diozon gnosthisi ento egizin ta eti epignosthisi en to parine ton kairon ana dikthisi en to tarakthine tin sikin mu. Drop that down a little. En orgi eleos menis thesi. O Lord, the Kyrie eleison is the Lord. I listen to Isaac Kikoa, your report, the akoin, the acoustics, that has to do with the sound. And I feared, fovithi, the foe, phobos, phobia. O Lord, I contemplated your works, ergonomics, and was startled. So Habakkuk now in this prayer is saying that he has heard these things. He's seen his works and he was startled. In in the midst, Mesopotamia, in the middle of the rivers, two of the living creatures, you shall be known. You shall be known in the midst of these living creatures. The zoon, we have a zoo. These living creatures are mentioned in detail in the book of Ezekiel and describes them. Also in Revelation it mentions a lot of the living creatures. You shall be known. This is where he abides. His abode is with the living creatures. They are different than angelic beings, and in the cherubim there's all these different beings that God has made: man, animals, plants, and inanimate objects. And then in the Bible mentions these other living creatures, the two living creatures and the cherubim, the archangels, the demons, it goes on and on. It's interesting to study all the different creatures in the Bible. In the approaching of the years, you shall be recognized. The more time goes by towards the end, more God will be recognized. In the time at hand, you shall be made manifest when my soul is disturbed. Sikin mu. The time, kairon. There's another word, is chronos. And it has from chronology. It's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, more definite. And here the time, it could be like seasons also. And this is what he's talking about. It will be made manifest when my soul is, the psyche, is disturbed. In wrath you shall remember mercy. In orgy, that has to do with this turbulence of a person and peoples. The orgy in his wrath. You shall remember mermanisthesi, the mania. Whenever you see this me, ni, ita, it has to do with mention. If you can help you remember that, and remember and mention. Elios, mercy. We have God's mercy in the wrath, thank goodness, because if he was wrathful and took it all out without having any mercy, the earth would have long ago have been completely destroyed. Verse 3, it continues. There's the subject. God, o theos apo theman ixi, ke o agios ex orus kataskiu pharan, diapsoma, ekalypsantus uranus, e areti avtu, ketis ainesios avtu, eplisti igi. God, the subject, shall come from, apo, is a prefix for many English words, shall come from Theman, or Teman. Teman was in what is now Jordan today, over in Edom, among the Edomites. Today it's in the southern part of Jordan. That's an interesting. God will come from out of Teman. To understand this, for me to say that I understand this would be pushing it, because I really don't, but it does say that God will come from out of Teman. It talks about the prince and coming to the east gate in Jerusalem from the east, and these things can all be studied with Ezekiel. Even the Holy One from out of the mount of the shady Pharan. The Complutensian has the shady Thasios, the shady thicket. This third chapter of Habakkuk probably has as many variants of the different manuscripts or the different Bibles that I collated it with, the Complutensian Polyglot, the Aldine, and the 16. And there's just tons of variants, and you can see these if you're interested in the 1709 Bosa we offer on their website, so the CD, and it has all these different variants. So the Holy One shall, from the mount of the shady Faran, if that is a place or it's the Complutensian or a shady thicket, that's mentioning that right here. And at Calypson is we have the apocalypse, a covering, and here it's covered. What covered? One, his virtue, arati, his virtue was the subject, covered the heavens, Uranus, Uranus the planet is the derivative, and his praise filled the earth, epleisti, plethora is the derivative, the geology, filled the earth. His praise, his virtue covers the heavens, and his praise filled the earth. So there's going to be this time when God is going to take over the earth, and it's going to be different than it is now, where he is not even, many people don't even consider the God of Israel as God, and let alone even a God or a creator of the earth. But it will change. And it continues, Ke fengos aftu os phos este, Ke kerata in hersin aftu, Ke etheto agapasin kratean iskios aftu. And his brightness will be as phos, as light. Revelations talks about no need of a sun in the New Jerusalem, and his brightness throughout the Bible, whenever it talks about God, has to do with him being light. God is light. There's no darkness in him. And horns in his hands, the horns, the power of has to do with the horns. They were put on the I believe it was the incense altar. It had the 4 horns on the corners, and people would grab them to be saved from being destroyed by the king or so forth. And he established a strong affection by his strength. God has established this strong krateon. We mentioned before the Democrat, the might of the people, the might of his agapisin. We have that word, the agape is the word, the strength of his affection, and the agape of God. He established it. It's something that we are taught by Jesus. It goes into the love, the agape, and it comes from God. It doesn't come from us. 3:5. It continues, prosopu avtu porevsete logos, ke exalevsete is pedia. Before his face, is a prefix for something before. Before his face shall go a word, a logos. There's also the rima as a word, other words for word. But the logos is different than a generic word. It has to do with specific, the word. Jesus is the word. It says the logos. God became flesh. The word became flesh. And the logos of God, the word with knowledge, rather than just a word. I could say something, I could say a word, it doesn't really mean anything, but the logos has a meaning behind it. And it shall go forth for a flat ground. It's going to be able to skim out and go out. Kata podasavtu esti ke esalevthi igi. Epevlipse ke diataki ethni. Diathrivi ta ori via. Etakisen vuni tu Ionos, At his feet, the podus, a tripod, a pod, at his feet, egi, the geology, the derivative, the earth, stood and shook. This salevthi is different than seismic. This seesaw, it's a shaking of like an earthquake, and this is the movement. There's a little bit of difference. They're synonyms. Hopefully we'll be coming up with lists of synonyms later to see the slight difference in these Greek words. He looked, and nations melted. God, his feet shook the earth. God's feet shook the earth, and the nations melted. God has control over the politics of this world, even though we like to think our democracy in the United Nations has it, but basically God determines nations and rulers. Mentions that in Psalms. The mountains, ori, oros, or mountains, the ori and oros are derivatives, were broke through by force. Via, we have a biathlon. It's an athletic endeavor by force. The eternal Ionos, the eternal hills melted away. God has control over the earth and what's going on. Even his eternal ways God has these ways and things that are happening in the earth, control over the earth eternally in these ages, ages before the man came. It could have been, who knows, which talks about in Genesis these ages of things that were happening that God has control over. We live in this present age. And it continues, Anti kopon, idon tas skinas, I theopon, parakthesonte, ke ta skinomata, tis gis madian. I beheld the skinas. We have a scene. It was early days of tents. They had the scenes they put on for plays and tents, and it's a derivative. I beheld the tents of Ethiopians in troubles. Antiseptic is a derivative, something against or anti. And the tents, the skinomata, same up there with the tents. And the tents of the land of Midian shall be disturbed. The Midianites were south of Teman, down further towards the Gulf of Aqaba and southern part of Jordan, along the other side of the Gulf of Aqaba from the Sinai, were the Midianites. The Midianite priest of Midian was the father-in-law of Moses. Moses went to there when he fled Pharaoh all the way over to Midian. Verse 8, Mi en potamis orgisthis, Kyrie, en potamis othimosu, en thalasi, ormisu. And there's the question mark, and you can tell it by the me. Were you provoked to anger at the rivers? Orgisthis, or again the orgy, having to do with this tumult. Were you provoked to angers at the river, or in the rivers? In is it could be either at or in, and at the rivers, the Potamis, the Potomac River, as a river. It means Potomac. It means river. And the rivers. Were you provoked at the rivers? What rivers is he talking about here? Probably the Mesopotamia and the area between the Tigris and the Euphrates, but I can't say that exactly, but it's a possibility. Kyrie, O Lord. Or was your rage, themos, we have the English derivative of fume, was your rage, fume. Theme and fume turned into the sound. Was your rage at the rivers? Or was your impulse, or me, at the sea? Was it at the sea? The sea here is the Mediterranean Sea, probably. The rivers could also be Egypt, because it talks about that in other places, with Egypt being the rivers, being among the rivers. The one riding upon epi, your horses, epus, the one riding upon your horses, mentions the horses in the 6th chapter of Revelation, and the 11th chapter it mentions the white horse in the book of Revelation. The one riding upon your horses, and your riding is deliverance. Hippasia has to do with epos, is a hippopotamus, is a river horse, the epos, and this is your riding. It has to do with riding horses because it's the eppasia. You're riding your horses, but many places when it brings in, not many places, but certain places it talks about horses and flying, and it gives these horses more strength than a horse would normally have. So it could possibly be future armaments that are in existence in the future of this time. Your riding is deliverance, the soteria. We mentioned before that we use the word deliverance rather than salvation because it has nothing necessarily to do with eternity and after life, after death, what goes on, but it has to do with a deliverance at a time specific. And so I used this word deliverance throughout the Apostolic Bible. Your riding is deliverance. These horses or armaments, whatever it is, that God is going to come and he is going to deliver. And 3:9, ektinos ektinis, to toxon su, epi ta skiptra legi kyrios, diapsoma, potamon ragisate gi. Stretching out, you shall stretch out your bow against the chiefdoms. God has his bow, and he can strike out. And this is the image here that Habakkuk is giving us. Legi says Kyrios, then pause. And the land, the geology, the land of rivers shall be torn. This possibly is the land of rivers. It mentions that as far as being Egypt and other places. And 3:10, Idon se ke odinisu si lei, diasperis idata tis porias, edokan I avisos tin phonin avtis to ipsos tis fantasias avtu. They saw you. Who? Peoples, lai, the peoples, laity. The people shall, and they shall travail. You shall disperse waters of the coursing. God is going to disperse. It mentions in Revelations about this water flowing and sweeping up the woman that with child, and from and the earth opened up its mouth. God has control of the things that are happening on the earth. And even the abyss gave out her voice. The avisos, some places it talks about the abyss as being a place in the depth of the seas, is the abyss. In other places it's a place where Satan and is going to be cast into and locked in for 1,000 years. God has control over the abyss. Her voice, the phonein, telephone, the phone of her voice. The height of his visible display. The ipsos, whenever you see this, ips It has to do with something high. Later on down here in 3:11 is exalted. The height of his visible fantasias, the fantasia, visible display. And verse 11, Ipsothi o Ilios, ke is salinis esti en ti taxiaftis, is phos, taxiaftis, is phos volidas su porevsonte, ke in fengi astrapis ton oplon su. The sun, Ilios, helium, is a derivative of the sun, was exalted, ipsothi, again, ip, up, and the moon stood in her order. God has control over not only the earth, but the celestial beings. At the light, or at light of your arrows they shall go forth. Phos, phosphorus, has to do with the light bearing. The light of your arrows, they shall go forth at the light of your arrows, and your weapons in brightness of lightning, in Fangi, the brightness of astrapis, the lightning. Astrophobia is a fear of lightning. A strobe light that has a straw, your weapons. When God does things in nature, they determine the actions of mankind. There's a television series right now on television, 2008, of I think it's the History Channel, on how things were in history were affected by nature. God, by nature, affects history. Lightning, and it gives all these things here of what God can do. In 3:12, in apili oligosis tingin ke in themo kataxis ethni. By intimidation you shall make the land few. Oligosis, you can add that, and it's got the orange into the English derivatives. An oligarch, a ruler of a few people. The olig, whenever you see that, it has to do with a few. By intimidation you shall make the land few. The gene, geology. And in rage, fume is a derivative again. You shall break ethni, nations, ethnic. 3:13. Exilthis e sotirian leusu tu sose ton Christon su. Evalas is cephalas anomon thanaton. Exigeras desmus eos tu trachilu istotelos. You came forth for deliverance. Again, the word that's used in the King James is salvation. You came forth for deliverance of your people, leu, laity, to sose, and there's the verb for the deliverance, to deliver. And so to deliver your anointed one, your Christon, the Christ. Right here we see the Christ in the Greek over and over again in the Old Testament. You don't see that in the English, because it calls him the anointed one, which I have down here, but you can see the Christon, and I put down in the below as far as it can be Christ. You can put either one you want in there. Evalas, ballistics, is the derivative. You threw death. Thanaton, thanatology is a study of death in mortuary science. You threw death onto the kephalas, cephalic, has to do with the heads of lawless ones. The lawless ones are going to see death. One, for the completion, the telos, for the completion, you rose bonds unto the neck, the trachelo, the trachea is the windpipe, tracheotomy in the neck. You rose, for completion, you rose bonds. He put Satan in bonds into the abyss. Now, in verse 3:14, the only place in the Apostolic Bible I have two different verses because there's so many. The variants are quite different. And the first one is the Aldine, and the 16 pretty much agree, and then the Complutensian is different, and it'll be on the next page here. But we'll just start and read this part, and then we'll go to the next one. Diekopsas in ecstasy kephalas dinaston. You cut kephalas, heads of mighty ones, the cephalic of dinaston, the dynasty of the mighty ones, for astonishment. Ecstasy is the English derivative. So many English words that come out of the Greek. All these yellow ones are English derivatives, more than half. You cut the heads of mighty ones for astonishment. Sisthesonte, they shall shake, seismic, they shall shake. They shall shake in it. They shall open wide their bridles. They shall shake in it. Afti, in afti. The anixusi halinus afton os o esthon patokos lathra. They shall shake in it. They shall open wide their bridles as the poor eating in private. Well, or as the poor, you see here now the nominative, the singular, it could be the poor eating in private shall open wide their bridles. That's probably where I should have had it that way. And then now 14, it changes with the Complutensian Polyglot reading. The amerisas in thambi tas kephalaston thinaton, salefthesonte in afti, anixusi tas enias afton os troglon patokon in apocrypho. And here it's you divided into parts in stupefaction, the heads, the kephalas of the thinaton, the mighty. And here's salefthesonte instead of the other one had to do with seismic, shaking. They shall shake in it. They shall open their reins as the poor chewing in concealment. Now, a lot of, whatever it is, it's the mighty people are going to be shaken. And basically that's what it's saying. And then things are going to be happening. 3:15. Ke epevivasas isthalasan tus ipusu. Tarasontas idor poli. You conducted your horses, ipus, the hippopotamus, river horse, you horses into the sea, thalasan. You conducted your horses into the sea, thalasan, thalactic, being to do with the sea, disturbing poli, idor, great waters, poli, polygamy, many, and many waters it could be here. Idor, hydraulics, with a idor, hydraulics having to do with water. He conducted the horses, could be armaments of the future, into the sea, disturbing great waters, and could be more than a sea. If it's talking about a sea, then could be even oceans here, possibly, what he's talking about. Goes past the local area of the Mesopotamia. And then 3:16, it says, Ephilaxamin ke eptoithi, e kiliamu, apophonis prosevkis, hileon mu, ke isilthe tromos, is taostamu, ke ipokatothen mu, etarakthi e exis mu, anapavsome in imeratis thalipsios mu, tu anavine me pros ton leontis parikias mu. Ephilaxamin, I watched, with guarding, mainly a prophylactic, has to do with a guarding, something that's in front. I watched, and my kilia, my belly, was terrified. Kolio is a prefix for a stomach. I was terrified from the sound, the phonies, phone, of the prayer, the prosevkis of my lips. And as he was seeing these things and what God was giving him, the information that was overloading him, and he was terrified inside from the prayer of his lips. God was speaking through his Holy Spirit. It wasn't the things that he was coming up from his own, and he was being affected by it. His lips. We have a chiliopod. It's a lipped foot, microscopic, small creature. And trembling, tromos. Tromometer is an instrument that measures tremors. And trembling entered into my osta, my bones. Osteopath, the person that treats the bones. Osteoporosis, osta. And my part beneath, ipokatothen. Ipo is under, hypo, and kato also is under, my underneath part. My manner was disturbed. I will rest in a day, ephemeral is the derivative, in the day of my affliction. I will rest. So all these things are going on that are happening, but I will rest in a day of my affliction. For me to ascend to the people of my sojourn, for me to ascend, pros, the leon, the laity of my parikias, the people of his sojourn. Is it talking about him coming back from captivity with the people of his sojourn, or is it talking about a future time when people will be ascended? It says here, for me to ascend, taken up possibly into the air, as it talks about in 2 Thessalonians. It's a possibility to go to the people of my sojourn, the people that are on the same path, the same way as that he is on, not the others. Dioti siki u carpophorisi, ke uk este genimata en tes ampelis psevsete, to ergon tis eleas, ke ta pedia u piisi vrosin. Exelipan apo vrosios provata, ke uk eparchusi voes epi phatnes. For though, I put the though in there, for though the fig tree, because this is what I see is it hasn't happened yet. It's possible. For though the fig tree shall not carpophorisi, carpo is has to do with fruit. It's a prefix, and phori is bearing. Blastophore, different kinds of fours. There's something that bears something. Though the fig tree shall not bear fruit, and there shall not be produce on the grapevines, and continues, and the work, the ergonomics of the olive, eleas, oil, elea, oil, even though the work of the olive rather, shall lie, psevsete, pseudo is a derivative, and the plains shall not produce, piesi, I mentioned before, the poet is a derivative of pia, something to doing, in this case the producing food, vrosin. Even though all these things should happen, the grapevine should stop, and the olive, and the plains for food, the wheat, the fig tree, and sheep cease from having food, and the oxen, voes, we have beef as a derivative, the oxen shall not exist at the stables. 3:18, ego they ento kyrio agaliasome, harisome epi to theo to sotiri mu. Yet I, but I, ego, I shall exalt in the Kyrio, in the Lord. I will rejoice, hari, the cheer is the derivative. I will rejoice over epi, theo, to theo, God, theology. Oh, I will rejoice over God, yet I will rejoice over God, he's saying. God, my deliverer, the sotiri, my Savior, the deliverer. And then it ends in verse 19. Kyrios o Theos dynamis mu, ke taxi tus podes mu is sintelion, ke epita ipsila epiviva me tu nikise me enti o thee aftu. The Lord, Kyrios o Theos, dynamis, the dynamite, God is my power, dynamis, and he will arrange my feet, the podes, tripod, unto completion. God is going to arrange my feet unto completion. He will take care of us and do the things necessary to complete his work. And upon the high places, Ips, when I remember I had the Ips, Ipsilon C, it has to do with up. And upon the high places, or up, he shall set me. For me to overcome, Nikise, we have the word Nike, a goddess of victory. Nicholas is the name. For me to overcome by his ode, by his ode, the victory that it talks about in the book of Revelations to all the people that overcome, to overcome in victory, is exactly the same word, number 35:28. For the overcomers, God gives the power. He will arrange our feet until completion. And if we are the overcomers, and we will be set in high places. This is what God has promised. And Habakkuk is delivering this prayer, or this ode in this part of 3:17, this ode to us. And it's a very deep and rich book of the Bible. It's a short one, but it has a lot of words to study, and a lot of these words are used, we'll find later as we go through over and over in the book of Revelation, Psalms, many places, talks about future times and things that are going to be happening. So this ends the seminar on the book of Habakkuk, and we'll be going to the next author, which is I'm not sure which one it is. I believe it's might be Malachi, but anyway, you'll see it on the website when the numbers of which one it is. So we hope to have you join us in this next seminar going through the next author of the Bible. God bless.